Okay. Hello. My name is Elizabeth. I actually had not pressed go live, so now I'm live, and I'm very happy to be here speaking on like-minded bitches drinking wine. I'm not drinking wine, but I did just eat a lovely piece of gluten-free orange cake from my local cafe, so I'm all ready to go. Feel free to reach out and ask any questions. I run the business Spell and the Gypsy Collective, which is an Australian fashion label that I run with my sister up in Byron Bay. So, oh, hi Jay. I was sitting here talking to the camera for about 5 minutes before I realised I had to press the go live button. So finally I worked it out. Let me just quit out of my, there we go. So I am ready to go. Jane, how are you, darling? Are you at work or are you being a lazy CEO? Hi, Christina, how are you? Hi, Jenna. I've just got my girl Lulu sitting next to me, and she's going to read out any questions that come up, and I just whispered to her that she should ask the question.
So many amazing things that we could ask you. What's been one of the biggest learnings that you've had along the journey so far?
Thanks for asking, Lily. One of the, actually Christina's asked a really similar question. She's asked, have you had a learning, business failure, and how did you overcome it? And it's actually the same thing that I thought of when you asked your question, Lulu. One of the things that I have been sharing recently is about around our learning around being honest, transparent, and kind of no bullshit with our customers. We had a situation last year where we'd started to become quite filtered in the way we were communicating to our customers, because we became quite sensitive about saying something to them, and if there was any way they could absorb that information in a negative way, it often was blown out of proportion on Facebook or on other social sort of forums where our customers, the really passionate customers, were hanging out. And so we started to sort of filter ourselves, and the more we did that, we were actually starting to operate from a little bit of a place of fear. And it meant that in about November or December last year, when things got really, we sort of fell over ourselves, we had a huge spike in sales, and our customer service team and our dispatch team weren't able to handle it, and things started to just fall over it. We weren't ready to communicate that as fast as we should have to our customers. And as a result, they were getting frustrated, and that frustration was starting to spill out on social media. And eventually I jumped on Facebook myself and was able to be really, really just straight up and honest with them, and came up and I just basically took every filter off myself and went through and just explained exactly what was going on. And our customers responded really, really well to that. And what we learned from that moment was that our customers weren't expecting us to be perfect, but they were expecting us to be straight up and 100% honest, to the point of sort of exposed and raw, which was really quite challenging at the beginning. But then it's basically been the best way to approach anything that goes on, good, bad, ugly, anything is now done with absolute transparency and honesty, and our customers are really responding well to it. So that was a huge learning, to not try and be perfect and not be afraid of bad press or bad comments back when we give them information.
So Jasimara has just sent through a question as well. She would love to know what you spoke about at the Run the World event last week.
Hi, Jasimara. Yeah, I spoke on Saturday at the League of Extraordinary Women Run the World event in Melbourne. I spoke at that event 2 years ago, and I think of all the conferences I've done, it was definitely one of the most, the events run by the League of Extraordinary Women are so heartfelt and supportive, and a bunch of women just wanting to support each other. And it was really nice that it's all women, because if you look out into the audience and you realise you're there with your tribe. But I spoke about a lot of things. I told my story of how I came to be working with my sister in Byron Bay, running a fashion label, and how we grew the business. In the early days, we started with zero money, absolutely $0, and literally started hand making pieces of jewellery, one piece at a time, and selling it at the Byron Bay markets. And I talked about how through embracing blogging and all other ways of sharing our story online, we were able to grow the business over the next 8 years to sort of be where we are today. And then I also talked about our Spell Sisters, hashtag Spell Sisters, some of our really core passionate customers. And I shared a little video from Jen, one of the girls, who is one of our wonderful passionate customers, and she makes these hilarious videos. You should see her Instagram. I'll find out exactly what her Instagram is so I can share it here. But I shared her video, which was kind of like a bit tongue-in-cheek and quite funny. And then I talked about that story. I just talked about then about how through being vulnerable and exposed on social media, it's allowed us to kind of develop an even stronger relationship with our customers in a way that I'm not afraid for them to say bad things anymore. I'm going to tell them exactly how it is, and that's basically from the place that we operate now. Yeah. And I talked about the future for Spell, which was a lot of stuff around sustainability and the launch of our People and Planet page. Yeah.
I just posted the link to Jen's Tumblr, so anyone that wants to watch that video that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And on the back of the
hi April, how are you going?
On the back of the ethics and sustainability, Jennifer actually just asked what advice you have for sourcing accredited factories.
This is quite to be honest, so basically just trying to fix that laptop here. When we started Spell, we started with one factory in Bali, and it wasn't an accredited factory. However, the factory was the owner, who was a 33-year-old woman who was the same age as me, and 3 sewers. So it was this really tiny grassroots factory that grew with us. And we spent so much time there. You know, we'd babysit the woman's daughter whenever we were there, and we'd all go out for dinner, and she'd send us photos when she took her team camping, and there was such a beautiful, close relationship. So when we moved to China, we wanted to make sure that we found factories who we felt had shared our values as well. And to be honest, we were quite naive. We didn't really know much about the whole idea of ethically accredited factories. I wish I had more education around that, so I would be able to start in China with factories that already had all of those accreditations with them already. However, we just didn't really know where to start, and we started with a few recommendations from friends who had used certain factories. One of the girls who was with us had worked with a really wonderful brand down in Melbourne, a very small independent label as well, and she used a factory over in China, and because there was no conflicting interest between our 2 labels, she was fine to be able to give us that information. And we developed some relationships with factories over there who we visited often, and we could see that they shared our values. Over the next few years, though, we realised that our customers wanted more than just our word, that they were following our code of conduct and that they shared our values. They wanted to know that someone else had looked into the fine print in that factory and made sure that everyone was being treated well, and not only well, like above the standards. So we wanted them to be accredited and not just trust us, our factories are good, which I've looked on some of my favourite labels and on their websites and tried to find information on the factories that they use, and a lot of the time there's no information at all. So when it comes to actually choosing factories, obviously I'm speaking to fellow businesswomen here, so it's something that I actually don't know much about, because when we decided we wanted our factories to be ethically accredited, we worked with them to get those accreditations. Because the factories were of such a high ethical standard anyway, getting those accreditations were very easy for us. It was just a matter of red tape and going through the motions and getting the accreditations ticked, and because we had so many different categories like towels and swim and shoes and jewellery, and it obviously took a lot of time to get each and every single one of those factories accredited. One thing we have found, there's an organisation in India called Setu, S-E-T-U, and they're a fair trade company that helps partner brands with artisans over in India, and it's a fair trade for-profit company, so it's a business, and they basically help put brands like Spell in touch with people in India who are doing great little artisan things and helping to keep giving work to people that have fair trade practices in their businesses. So that's one way that we've been able to partner with some great artisans over in India. But in terms of China, we had a handful of great factories that we had relationships with, and then we worked with those factories to get accreditation. But it is something I want to work on to find that information. How would you start off by getting an accredited factory? Because personally, I wish we had started that way. It certainly would be a lot easier. And if I was going to start from scratch, I definitely would not go ahead with a factory unless it was ethically accredited.
Amazing, thank you. Samantha has asked, what is the key to having a successful business partnership?
Okay, I'm reading Mia Friedman's, what's it called? Work-life balance? No, work-life strife or something, work-balance strife. Anyway, I'm reading that at the moment. She talks about that partnership she has with her husband when she was starting Mamma Mia. And it was very similar to the relationship that Isabella and I have had, which is that we bring two very different things to the business. We're very different, we have different skill sets, and there's really hardly much crossover at all. So she's over there on that side of the business, I'm over this side of the business. And we both bring something really, really strong in our different areas. Isabella's the designer, she's the creative mind, she can create something from nothing when it comes to designs for our label. And I'm the big picture thinker, I'm more business, I'm marketing, I'm communication outwards to our customers. Yeah, and my advice to anyone, I can't understand how anyone would be able to run a business without a business partner, because I have so much of a skill set in my little niche area, and I can't imagine having any other skills. That Spelly has to be 50% of this business so that she can bring all of those other skills that I'm just not good at all. So that's probably my biggest thing, is find someone to go into business with that really complements your skill set.
Amazing. We have two questions that work quite well together. Mm-hmm. So from Hannah, have you had to move the business in a different direction at all since you first started? And then Tiziana, sorry if I said your name wrong, is wondering what we're focusing on right now.
Yeah, sure. So obviously we started out as a jewellery label, but very quickly we realised that only a small portion of people wear jewellery and everyone wears clothes. So we really quickly moved the business into an apparel and just wanted to, I guess, have more touch points and wider category offering. So we started off by going to apparel and then started expanding into other categories like swim and ride. What was the first question again?
Have you changed the direction of the business from when we first started?
There was a point in 2015 where we experienced a huge rate of growth, about 150% year-on-year growth from the year 2014 to 2015. And at that point, I was very much under the impression that the more you sell, the more you buy, and then you just keep selling more and buying more and keep growing and buy more stuff and sell more stuff, and how can that be bad? And you just keep growing your business that way. And then all of a sudden we were buying so much stock and selling it, but every single piece of the business felt like it was falling apart because we were just completely not able to keep up with that rate of growth, and all the other departments and systems, and didn't have enough experience behind our team that we recruited. And at that point, around 2015, me and Isabella and my general manager and a mentor that we were working with at the time all came together, and we realised that we wanted to take on the mantra, better, not bigger. And that's pretty much what we started focusing on, was the inner health of our business. So that's where we started really limiting the amount of stock that we were buying so that we could make sure we could keep up with our own growth. And we didn't want those wheels to feel like they were sort of falling off anymore. It felt like we were kind of going down this hill in a little, what do you call it, like a billy cart and the wheels are about to fall off. And now we're very cautious with our growth. We're very very specific in our forecasting. So in terms of, that was a moment where our business became, we really understood how we wanted to grow, and it was a lot more calculated and cautious. So that was a big moment where our business just shifted. And I think that that's really helped the business to grow. The hype around how fast our collections sell out is actually a byproduct of that decision to still keep buying quite conservatively.
Great. And the second part of the question was, what are we focusing on now?
Okay, second part, yeah. Look, in a huge way at the moment, our collections, Felly designs a collection. It almost happens, I'm not going to say it happens in her sleep, because it definitely doesn't, but that is, we've got our collections and we bring that out, and that's what happens, and it's quite, we've sorted that part of our business now, but moving into the areas of ethics and sustainability, more environmental impact at the moment is a huge area that we're really starting to focus on now and concentrating on now, and it's new for us. It's, we all live really sustainable lifestyles here in Byron, from our personal lives and even the operations in Australia. We're really proud of that, but we want to now start expanding that to our production overseas and the product that we're creating, and make sure that, the fashion industry has a lot to answer for, and we want to start becoming part of the solution rather than part of the problem. So that's a huge focus at the moment.
Amazing, we're so passionate about it.
Lily's one of the ones that's really helping me drive that communication to our customers, and that's really it's a big part, because it was never part of our conversation before. We were very much about inspiring people and showing them beautiful imagery and hoping that people really started to get inspired by the lifestyle that we were showing on our social media and everywhere else. But we've started to weave that story of sustainability through that conversation with our customers now.
Amazing. We're getting so many good questions. Thank you to everyone for sending them through.
It's awesome talking to women who are business owners, so it feels so much more relevant. Then it's great.
So the next question is from Angela, who has asked, she said she loves our stuff and it's so well priced. How do you keep your costs down? And also she just mentioned how quickly it sells out, which is what you were just speaking about. Is this going to change an increase in supply? Okay, so first of all, how do we keep our costs down? Okay, so one of the aspects of our business model is that we have always focused on our retail program. So most fashion labels have a wholesale business. So they basically obviously make the clothes and then they sell it to a wholesaler who sells it on, and their margins are very small. From the beginning, because we never really approached wholesalers, a huge part of our business is to our retail customer, which means our margins are much higher. So that's what allows us to be able to put that extra love and extra detail into our garments. Most of our garments, some of them are, a lower price point that are made out of rayon, but a lot of them have really beautiful detailing. There's no like, I'll just chuck that button on it. It's like we try 10 different buttons before we even decide what sort of button our garment's going to have. We hand create every bit of lace on a computer in design before we put it into production. It's very rare that we buy stock just off the roll. Most of the time we've designed that lace ourselves, or the prints are hand designed. There's so much love that goes into it, and that's only possible because of those margins that we get through being a retail business. So 80% of our business comes from our retail customer, and only 20% of our business is with our wholesalers. So that really helps us to, it's not about so much keeping costs down, it's that keeping those margins healthy so that we can keep putting so much love and passion and detail into all of our garments. And do you think that we'll see an increase in supply?
Yes. So that question of like, at the moment, we brought out a collection on Tuesday, and before the day was over, like within 6 or 7 hours, we've reached about 70% sell-through of that collection, which is crazy. So many of our customers are missing out. So we definitely want to start purchasing more units. But it's never going to be like, if we're at the moment purchasing this many units, we're not even thinking about doubling it. It'll be maybe 10, 20, 30% more units to try and I mean, I'd like to ideally have a collection available to our customers for the first few weeks, and then if things sell out after a week or so, then that's fine, but after a day it feels really crazy to be selling out that quickly. So hopefully over the next little while we'll see more of an availability for our customers, which will you know, there'll still be limited edition pieces in the more higher price points, but the idea is I'd like to be selling out within a week to 2 weeks, not within 1 to 2 hours.
Definitely. The next question is, how have you managed growth without overwhelm? And have you had moments where you've struggled to maintain passion and motivation for spell?
Okay, so the first part of the question, we definitely have had times when we've had growth and overwhelm that we've struggled with it. That 14 to 15 year was a huge learning curve when you've got systems in place and you realise you have a sale, and at one point we had a sale and I think we had 5,000 or 6,000 orders to send out that day, or we got about 5,000 or 6,000 orders that day. We had about 8 people in our dispatch in our warehouse, and we were able to get out about 140 or to 200 orders a day. So basically that would have taken us almost a month to get through all of those orders, because of course more orders were coming in every day as we were going, and our customers were frustrated and it was crazy, and our customer service team fell over, and then we moved to a 3PL thinking that would help us, and of course Jane from ShowPro knows all about how detrimental that can be if that doesn't go smoothly, which it never does. So there were times when we definitely felt overwhelmed by the rate at which we were growing. However, I said earlier on in the conversation that in 2015 we decided to adopt a better not bigger mantra, and before we made any business decision over the next 24 months we asked ourselves, is this going to make our business better, not bigger? And that's pretty much what we did. So that inner health of the business is what we really concentrate on now. We've started to open up the gates a little bit more, and we're more ready for growth now because we've spent the last few years investing in new systems, new people, experienced staff, a new office where we're all under one roof, and there's all these areas that we've invested in over the last few years. So we're ready for growth a little bit more now, fingers crossed. And what was the second part of the question?
So I suppose this is a more personal side, which is how have you have you struggled to maintain passion and motivation for spell? And if you have, how did you move through that?
I never struggled with feeling inspired or driven by the brand. There were times when I had my first child and then my second child where I felt very torn and was trying to find a balance because I was so busy and I was feeling a lot of guilt around not being there enough for my children. So that was sort of something different, but I kind of moved through that by just, to be honest, just time. Now that my youngest is about 3, it's all just feeling so much smoother, and I'm sure any mothers out there will know that you search for that balance for the first few years and it's just clunky and hell, and then they turn 3 and it all just starts to feel smooth and easy again without even anything that you've done changing. It's more just that they've grown up. So that was that. But I've never stopped feeling inspired by the business. I do think attending conferences, not networking events, but more the networking that comes with attending conferences, and just to keep constantly learning. I'm well into the rabbit hole of blog posts, podcasts at the moment. I'm loving Reid Hoffman's Masters of Scale, listening to amazing founders from Abegg and Netflix and all these incredible businesses talk about scaling their business. I'm loving that. I'm really into Tim Ferriss at the moment and just really going down the big rabbit hole that is the podcast world. And that's really helping me to stay, I'll go away, I'll listen to a podcast, I'll come back to it and I'm like, okay, guys, we're having a workshop, we're going to do this. And I'll bring the team up to our wellness room and we'll do a workshop and we'll do a brainstorm. And I'm finding that's really keeping my love for it active.
Amazing. Sarah asks, what parts of your business do you outsource?
Okay, so we started off by doing all of our PR in-house, and we now outsource to a PR agency in Sydney called AWPR and another PR agency in LA, so they're both outsourced. We now have 3PL in Sydney and LA, so we outsource our warehouse and dispatch, which comes with many pros and many cons. So that's been a big learning curve around how to navigate that change from having complete control to your warehouse to no control. We have an agent in LA who does our showings for wholesale, and then our wholesale, an in-house wholesaler who deals with Australia wholesale accounts. We have a Japanese agent as well who does wholesale. Pretty much everything else is in-house, isn't it?
Yeah, production is obviously outsourced, but everything else.
Well, our factories, we use third-party factories, but all of our production is in-house in terms of our team run that production. So yeah, it's mostly in-house. We're very autonomous here. We want to have control over everything.
Micromanaging.
Yeah.
Blanade says, what trends are you most excited about for this summer?
Trying to think what's coming out this summer.
Any colour palettes that spring to mind?
Look, I'll be honest with you. The girls in design, they do develop really, really strong specific mood boards for each collection, but the trends that we look at aren't trends. They're things that we've been inspired by that are more obscure and far away. So I think the trend, I think the mood board, basically the girls called our summer mood board gas station vibes, gas station feels, and they look to basically gas stations for their inspiration. Yeah, we don't really look at trends. We don't ever look at trend forecasting. We have no access. We don't subscribe to any kind of trend forecasting websites or anything. It all comes from stuff we want to be wearing just because we're loving it. That said, obviously there's things that we're loving ourselves, and I'm gravitating a little bit towards more neutrals and not so much block colours, but neutrals. So that's something that I'm loving. I'm trying to sort of infuse into the designs a little bit. But Isabella's just always so playful, and her summer is her favourite collection. So basically it's colour. There's always going to be colour in our summer collection, no matter how many neutrals are cool and everyone's wearing, like, you know, oatmeal and all those beautiful neutral colours. Bella's like, okay, well, I'm going to put in a bright turquoise and pink and purple flamingo inspired design, and that's pretty much what you're going to see in our summer collection. It's lots of colour, a few caramel colours in there as well, but yeah.
Really exciting. Quite a few people are asking about when you started the business. So I'm just going to compile a few questions into one so we can get through them all. So this is Elizabeth, Lana, Gemma, May, and Madeline are all asking, what advice would you give to your past self when you were first starting Spell?
Look, when I started Spell, I was in my early 30s and I'd already learnt so many life lessons. I was very good at following my instincts, and it felt like so many of the decisions we made in that in those early years were the right decisions. So I think the advice I'd give to that girl would just be to enjoy those early years where it's a small business, to enjoy while it's small, enjoy the really close relationships you have with those people that work next to you and on the next desk, because once you start to grow and scale, you know, you'll become more of a boss and you won't have that closeness necessarily as much. And yeah, look, I don't know. I think I probably just whisper in my ear, just keep going exactly what you do. You're on the right track. Just trust yourself, which is what I did. So.
Follow your heart, trust
Follow your heart, yeah.
And
I'm sure there's lots of things if I actually stopped and thought about it, but those early years were just fun. It was just fun. We're at the markets. It's just fun. Yeah. So enjoy it.
What advice would you give to newbies who are struggling to gain traction or to turn their captive audience into actual customers?
Yeah. I was at a conference last week, and I think someone from Showco spoke actually. Yeah, their marketing manager or something, marketing marketing executive officer. Anyway, it felt like at this conference, one of the things I was sort of hearing was that all roads lead back to Facebook, and I think that that's an area that Showco fucking kill it at. Obviously, it's certainly an area that we don't kill it at. I don't like Facebook, so I've never pushed it, and I don't feel like we've been utilising it even enough ourselves, but I definitely would say any help you can get around using Facebook and pushing posts and paid advertising on Facebook to really start utilising it, build that following, and then push it out there. One of the big things is video. I think video is huge, is huge and getting huger. Live video, and obviously if you're doing live videos, you're obviously getting 100% market share of your following, as opposed to posting an image and the algorithms only sending it out to certain people. Also, we're getting incredible traction from swipe up to shop on Insta stories and Insta Live as well. I think it's great to have an awesome, beautiful curated feed on Instagram and a 460 click through and all that sort of stuff. But I think if you can be creating great content on stories and telling your story through these new avenues like Stories Live and Facebook Live, I think you're going to be, really rewarded by the algorithms. Something I learned on the weekend as well, speaking at Run the World event, was that if you're creating content and posting it on the day that you create it, you will be rewarded by the algorithm as well. So if you're creating imagery and sharing it a week later, you'll be punished by the algorithm won't give you as much traction as you would if it was instant content. So really content creation, that's definitely the way that we built our brand, was content creation.
Yeah, definitely. And off the back of that, somebody just asked, what are your best marketing or social media tips? So is there anything else you wanted to add in?
One of the ones that Lulu's been using recently that we found out was obviously Pinterest being a great way to push traffic back to your website. And she's using an app called Tailwind, and it's a way of bulk uploading pins to your Pinterest. So rather than actually, when you say blog something or you bring out a new collection, you've got 25, 30 images to put onto Pinterest, rather than to go through and put each one on, using Tailwind to put them all on in one go will make it faster, and you'll be able to use that time elsewhere. And again, Instagram Live, Facebook Live, and stories, and really start using that swipe up, because people are swiping up and it's literally one swipe and you've been taken somewhere. So as a consumer, I think it's just such a nice, lazy way to shop.
Around the business again.
Or shop or read content, or basically land anywhere in one swipe. You can take someone anywhere on the internet.
Yep, so much easier. So back around your business and your journey with that, a few people have been asking about business mentors, and do you have several different mentors? How did you find these mentors?
We have one particular mentor we've been working with for quite a while. He was someone that came to us. We live up in Byron Bay. It's certainly not as easy to come across business mentors in our industry. But Paul is someone that, I don't know how we found him. I think he worked with another, like a male fashion label up here for many years, and he just kind of had this great way of working with us. I can't remember how we even found him. It must have just been through a recommendation, but I think I'm a mentor to actually the lady who planned my wedding. She's an event manager, event planner, and she approached me and asked me to be her business mentor. And I think the best way is to actually think, who inspires me? Okay, so two different types of mentors, I think. One, if there's someone that you can think of that inspires you, just approach them and ask them to be a mentor. I think asking someone to meet once a month, once every couple of months, with some really great questions that you keep building, and then you can just hit them up with however many questions you want. I actually had a mentoring session this morning here with Rachel from the Events Lounge. But there's another type, that's obviously an inspiring mentor that you feel that you know about and might be someone that you've come across in your industry, but I think someone like who has a bit more of a business background that you may not ever have come across had you not have maybe asked different businesses if they have a business mentor, and just basically get people who are, they aren't maybe just a peer, there's someone that's well more established in industry, which Paul isn't someone I've been watching and wanting to be my mentor. He came to us as a business mentor, and that's been really good. So employing someone, you know, and we pay him by the hour. It's not something that he's doing out of the goodness of his heart. It's something that, you know, we pay for and we get great mentorship there.
Amazing. What general, oh yes.
I was just going to say, someone did tell me once that obviously jumping on LinkedIn and thinking of, you know, thinking like your most far and away great idea of, oh, I want to speak to someone from this company, and literally getting on LinkedIn and actually just contacting them straight up. It's great. A great way to do it now these days.
Yeah, it's such a good networking tool. Louise has asked, what general skills do you hold most important in the business world today? So not just in selling product, but also for networking and maintaining your position in the market.
Business skills.
Yeah, so what general skills do you hold most important in the business world today?
I think one of the things that I'm really loving, and I mean, the last question was about networking, and when I did that mentoring session with Rachel today, she asked me how do I network and how the best way to network. So one of the best ways that I found that networking comes for me is by going to these conferences where I find myself around not necessarily people in the same industry, but like-minded people. And once you go to the conference, you've been inspired, your mind's expanded, and then you walk out, and those conversations you have in the foyer after the conference are always inspired, and the conversations you have and even the thoughts that you're having are way more expanded than they would be had you just rocked up to any old networking drinks or something. So I think for me, that active learning and continuing to want to better yourself as a business owner has for me kept my mind expanding, and I think it's another reason why I'm always inspired, because it's constantly expanding my awareness around me. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
I don't know if I answered that.
No, I definitely think you did. A few people have actually asked about, obviously you and Spelly are such, you're so in the public figure as part of the brand, and how do you handle any criticism that you might receive either online or in our hometown?
So our social media accounts, like our Instagram and our Facebook, to be honest, there's not a whole lot of criticism there. People are very generous, they're very forgiving and warm and inclusive, and there are forums for people to air those feelings of frustration or anger or bitterness or whatever it is, whether it's on a social media like a Facebook group or something. So there's like those buy, swap and sell pages who are, you know, often some of our most passionate, awesome customers are able to engage with each other on there. But obviously there's going to be times when criticism comes up. I've never looked at one of those buy, swap and sell pages, so I don't see it. I often hear about it, and there's been times when I've heard something, and if I feel like it's really unwarranted, we've contacted those people and sort of let them know how it is. But we're lucky that the engagement between our customers on our Instagram and Facebook pages are pretty positive, so we're lucky to be quite protected in that way. And within our small town, look, I just don't really, I'm not really hearing about it if people are saying nasty things. I think I'm pretty, I don't know, I'm not going to say I'm thick-skinned. If I heard someone say something really nasty about me, it'd probably really hurt me, and I'd probably want to defend myself. But people are really supportive. You know what? I think because we're so supportive of other businesses in this town, most of the stuff that comes back to us is really supportive in return. So we kind of try to give of ourselves as much as we can, and that seems to come back pretty reciprocally, or it's reciprocated nicely. So, but in terms of negative stuff on online. Of course, there would be stuff being said, but I'm never going to make decisions in business anymore based from a place of fear around being spoken of negatively online. All I'm going to do is just tell them how it is and just speak how it is. And if people don't like us, they can unfollow us. It's fine. We get unfollows all the time.
Yeah, great. And so many amazing questions. So thank you to everyone that's sending them through. I'm trying to make sure we get to everyone. Rachel has asked, how do we deal with copycats?
I don't know how many businesses there are listening here that have products that can be copied. There was a woman from speaking on Saturday at the Run the World conference from Box. I think it's a baby product company. She makes stuff in China and they're dealing with copycats all the time. And it was really interesting listening to how she talked about how they handled it legally. As far as I know, and from what our lawyers tell us, there's not all that much we can do. The fashion industry is a very grey, fine line. You can't make a red dress with short sleeves and a scoop neckline and this long and say that it's yours design and no one else can make a dress like that. So the worst is when we see a print that was hand designed by us and our artists, and we've literally hand drawn some of the icons on the print. And when we see that replicated, it's obviously really heartbreaking. And we get our lawyers to take action with that. Whenever we do, we get them to send cease and desist letters and things like that. However, when those things are being replicated by some faceless company in China, it's really hard for us to find those companies, and we do what we can. We send cease and desist letters to the wholesalers that are stocking that garment, but they just say, oh, we don't know, you know. So to be honest, we let our lawyer deal with it. Anything we see on Facebook or anywhere else, we just try and get onto it as much as possible. And some of them take it down and don't do it again, and more pop up. And basically the best thing we do is keep our eye down, keep designing new innovative things, and continue to try and just keep getting better and challenge ourselves and not look sideways and not look backwards, just keep looking forwards.
Nadia's question really relates to this as well. She's just asking if you have any advice on confidentiality with our manufacturers.
Look, we have, a code of conduct, and they do sign agreements that say they would never show our designs to anyone else. And it's not, to me, it's more about the relationships we have with our factories. So we know that they would never do anything. These factories, we've been working together for years now, and we spend so much time over there. We see it. If we saw someone copying our stuff, we'd see it happening because we spend so much time there. We have people on the ground all the time in our factories. They are incredibly protective of our IP. They're incredibly protective of our designs, so much to the point they'll actually send us an image if they find something in the marketplace that's even similar. So we don't, it's just a trust and a relationship that's built with our factories. That's not to say, anyone could take any dress and take it to a factory and get it replicated at any time. So as much as we can, we just keep looking forward, Yeah,
definitely. This one's kind of funny. Greer is asking, do you ever completely switch off? I imagine it must be so hard with your high social media engagement.
I used to do the Instagram feed completely on my own, and that was tough. It definitely took its toll on my marriage. I'd sit down after dinner on the couch with my phone, and I remember Johnny once said to me, assume the position. Just, but these days I've got a small team around me. Mel and Lisa and Lulu all kind of help me now to curate and create content. And I've found that I'm spending a lot more time watching Suits in the evening than I am on Instagram, so that's really good. Look, we switch off. I definitely find that if I go on a holiday, so I'm going to Bali on Saturday, and that will be a 10-day break, and the content creation that will happen by default of being there will be more because I love doing it. and I'll, Johnny, take a photo of this, and let's take a photo of this, and it's more stuff that I love doing. So I won't be completely switching off, but it won't be an obligation. It will be coming from a place of joy. And that's always really helpful. I mean, me and my husband used to always say when we'd sit down on our day bed, we don't have a television, but we've got our computers, and we sit down, and he'll be like, oh, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I'm just going to do some passioning, and that's what we used to call it, instead of working at night. It's like, it's coming from a place of, I love doing this, not because, oh, I've got to send out these few emails, you know.
I love that, coming from a place of passioning. Do you still think that you are 100% across what Spelly is doing?
No. She's got a really strong team now. Isabella has a couple of designers. Well, one girl who started off as an intern with us, Lily, she's been working with Spell really closely for the last few years, and Isabella and her are like a little team, and they've got their, so it's basically Isabella, Lily, and then our textile designer, Julia, and they work very closely together. They do their thing. We've got production manager who makes sure that they're running to schedule. We've got tech designers who make sure that all the stuff that they're happening in their heads are coming to life and being taken to our factories and brought to life. I definitely step in and out of that department. I like to be across any new category development or product development, but I largely let them just go these days and try not to stick my fat little nose in there. I find that when I go in there, I'm sure you guys as entrepreneurs will understand that part of being an entrepreneur and part of making a business great is that you're critical and you're constantly trying to make things better, and that's my job in the business. So if I go into the department, the design department, and start criticising them and trying to make things better, I basically just come out looking like an idiot or a bitch, or it just lands like a big lead balloon in the room, and it's really not what they need. They need me to create a great business around them that can sell their product and make sure we've got enough money to buy units in their designs once they've designed them. So I try to stay out of there as much as I can.
I guess there's a lot of trust that goes into it.
I don't think they like me even being in there.
What has been your biggest learning curve? This is from Madeline, and she also asks, what advice do you have on what not to do when starting out in business?
Look, last year was a huge learning curve. I told the story at the beginning of this session about how we started to really be filtered in how we were having conversations with our customers, and that was a huge one for me. It was basically just really not worrying about what people were saying, and make sure that as long as whatever you're doing you feel like you can do with integrity, it doesn't really matter what anyone says. So that was a huge learning. I'm learning every day around leadership. I feel like I want to be a great leader, and I want to be able to run a really great business with a great culture, and I'm trying to learn that as I go. I think sometimes I can be a good leader, and other times I can really let people down, and so I'm trying to get better around that. I feel like it's something I'm really trying to concentrate on at the moment and become better at. I'm doing that through doing some leadership training with a third-party consultant to try and be the best boss that I can. So yeah, that's kind of happening now. Yeah.
In case anyone's wondering, she's an amazing boss.
Oh, thanks, Lily. No, I can be very critical, and it's like a lot of the girls I work really closely with, they know that no news is good news with me. If they do something and I don't say anything bad, then they know they've done a really great job, and I don't want it to be like that. I want to be positive before I'm like, fix that and that. Anyway, Lily knows. She always has to put up with me.
April has asked, what is a key feature you look for in staff?
This was a big learning that I had recently, actually. It was when I was networking with someone from down in Melbourne through the whole Telstra Business Awards that we were part of last year. We were talking about workplace culture and staff and diversity in our workplace, and I sort of proudly said, yeah, we've got like 50 women working for us, and we want more men, but the fact is that we keep just giving the best candidate the job, and it always happens to be a woman. It's not our fault. So that's what we do. And he just looked at me and was like, you can't create change just by giving the best person the job. But that's not going to create a diverse workplace. If you you've got to actually actively try to make change in the way you're hiring and recruiting people so that you do have a diverse workplace. And that's something we're really trying to work on now, is making sure we have people, rather than just finding someone who's going to fit into our little niche-y, clicky team, try and find people who have different ways of thinking. They come from different backgrounds, which will affect their different ways of thinking. Men is just one example, whether it's, I'm not talking about even race or sexuality or gender. I'm talking about someone that might have come from a different part of society that have different ways of problem solving than I do and Lulu does. And, someone that's not about wellness, someone that's about like the school of hard knocks or whatever it is, someone that's a bit more ballsy. Like, we're very safe. I'm trying to find people in my team that are different to me and different to my team members. So that's something we're really looking for at the moment. But we definitely don't look for people who love the brand. We look for people who love what it is they do. So if they're in accounts or finance, I want them to love numbers and get excited by a spreadsheet. I don't want them to care about spell close, because that's not important to me. I want them to be the Harvey Specter of, like, whatever they do. Yeah, so that's to me, that's probably the most important thing.
Amazing, thank you.
Otherwise, we end up having a whole lot of fangirls around going, oh, spell, it's so amazing. It's like, oh no, we just want you to love marketing or love design or,
Yeah, everyone's so passionate in their individual roles.
It's true, yeah.
So earlier you spoke about, when we started the business, how you focused on the online side rather than trying to push wholesale. Has this maintained in that balance as Spell has evolved?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, because once the brand awareness started to grow, obviously a lot of wholesalers started to approach us. And it would have been very easy to just say yes, yes, and then we got an agent in LA, and things started to really grow in the wholesale world. And so first we're 80% retail, 20% online. And the moment wholesale started to grow, we started to make stronger collections and bringing those wholesale collections in on time. That started to feel like it was going to grow, and it was starting to grow. And all of a sudden one day we realized that that 20% had become 30%. And then another day we realized that that 30% had become 35%, and that it was only just starting to grow. And very quickly we realized we've got to bring it back down to 20. So it meant like capping orders and reassessing all the accounts that we had. And although every season we could sell way more to our wholesale base than we do, we still make sure that it stays at that 20% base, so we're getting those margins. It's a very, very conscious and strict decision that we enforce very heavily. And our wholesale manager works with us for that, because most people in sales, they're just told to go and sell as much as they can. And she has to work very hard to sell a very small portion of what she could. She has to use her efforts to not sell as much as she can to keep it at 20%. And if she goes over 20%, trouble. So for us, it's a very specific business model, and we really do. The online business dictates the growth of every department in our business.
It's a fine balancing act. So even though our business is predominantly online, do you and Isabella envision opening any other bricks and mortar retail stores beside our Byron flagship store?
Yeah, I'm so confused about this. I really want to, and I would love to, but given that online is so much part of our business, I'm a bit divided on whether or not we should. Like, do we just continue to focus online and make it best damn online shop in our genre of clothing? I don't know. I would love anyone's suggestion on whether or not this is something we should do. It's I'm meeting this week with Spelly and two of our mentors and our accountant and our general manager, and to basically have our 2017-18 planning meeting. And this is one of the big conversations we'll be having, is whether or not we're going to open up more stores. And we just don't really know. It feels like, I don't know, why would we? I don't know. Didn't Shoko did, and they just closed them down because, you know, they're doing it online. People shop online now. My husband, we have an all press coffee. We have an all press shop across the road from our office, but Johnny still buys it online because then it arrives at our door.
Anyway. The future is online.
Yeah.
Can't wait to hear what comes out of your vision day later in the
I
week.
know, it's going to be huge.
Somebody else has also asked, what does the future for Spell look like? So you'll probably have more clarity after your meeting this week, but at the moment, what are you feeling?
Look, a huge part of it for me is around that, it's around the areas of ethics and sustainability in terms of the future and the essence of the brand. I want that to be infused into the brand so much more. I would love that if people are wearing Spell, they can feel proud because it's an independent label, that it's, you know, so much love's gone into it, and that it's not harming the planet, and that it's, you know, doing something good. So that's really a direction that we want to go. Yes, it's fashion. I know it's fashion, but I don't believe that fashion can't have some kind of redeeming features about it, even though it is causing so much planet damage to the planet around us. I feel like there are going to be huge steps just in the whole science of the fabrics we're using and the printing methods that we're using. And I feel like there's so much push at the moment around that over the next few years, there are going to be technologies coming out where you can become more conscious as a fashion brand, and I want to be at the forefront of those changes. Yeah.
I think we've actually gotten through everybody's questions so far. So unless anyone else has anything they'd like to add.
Thanks, guys. There were some awesome questions there. It was so nice to answer them. I feel like it'd be nice if it was more like just a roundtable discussion. I'd love to hear what you guys are saying. So, yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye.